India and Guyana might be geographically far from each other. They're linked by many things, including a strong diaspora, Indian diaspora in that country. With me is the president of Guyana, Irfaan Ali, who is of Indian origin. Welcome to WION, sir. My first question to you is about your India visit. You started your India visit from Indore, from Pravasi Bharatiya Divas Convention. How did you see India from the angle of a diaspora, of someone who is leading his country now?
Well, India is leading the G20 as we speak today. India is also one of the fastest growing economies. India is projected to be the third largest economy by 2030. India has been leading in the area of technology, food production, environmental services, human resource development for some time now. Prime Minister Modi's objective of creating a One India policy in which the developmental aspirations of all of India is in line with what we are seeking to achieve in Guyana also, a One Guyana development perspective. But the concept has now been broadened in the One World, One Family theme as India commences its chair of the G20. Our world is faced with many different challenges today, whether it's food security, climate security, energy security, technological transfer, inequalities. In all these areas, India is well positioned to provide global leadership, to provide the type of leadership that is different in its approach. What do I mean? We have seen many countries who are blessed with resources, talent, human resource talent, but during the pandemic, we saw that most countries opted for more inward-looking policies, isolating themselves and protecting themselves first. India demonstrated its full commitment to multilateralism when facing the same challenge. They opened up themselves to supporting the world with vaccines. So, on the question of being a global leader with a difference, India is demonstrating that it is ready and willing to provide a leadership that is different in the world. So I think as a member of coming from ancestors who would have came from India, India is our motherland, I see this role of India expanding. But as you mentioned earlier, one of the challenges is the geographic location of Guyana, the Caribbean, Latin America. It is my humble opinion that Prime Minister Modi is now seeking to ensure that India foreign policy, India developmental agenda and positioning of India must now incorporate the aspirations of all these countries. Today we had the Global South Summit.
So you pointed to a number of global issues, imported inflation, price rise has been the biggest worry, and one of the key causes has been the Russia-Ukraine conflict. How much has this conflict impacted your country, if you can talk about that?
Well, the conflict has impacted the entire world. The grains, for example, is an input for feed production. Grains is a staple in many countries, and the increased cost of grain, increased cost of fertilizer has driven up the cost of food, has driven up the cost of transportation, has added additional burden on the disposable income for families who need to get food as a necessity. So the conflict in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, has definitely impacted Guyana as it has impacted all other countries in a negative way.
And one of the area looks like defense cooperation, military cooperation. The Indian readout, when it comes to your meeting with the Indian Prime Minister, talked about military cooperation. What kind of military cooperation are you looking at? Because India is keen when it comes to more local manufacturing and equipments made in India being used by the world when it comes to defense sector. So are you looking to buy Indian defense equipments?
So we are in a process now of modernizing our military. Replacing equipment, having military hardware. So we are examining all possibility. And a possibility that is available to us is hardware and military equipment and supply from the Indian government, from India. But more importantly, we have already embarked on closer and more elaborate cooperation, military to military cooperation with India. We have a number of our officers being trained in India now, and that number is increasing continuously. So the understanding in terms of the collaboration from the military end is human resource, technology, equipment, and a more integrated relationship, military to military relationship, in supporting Guyana modernization effort and retooling effort of its military.
Sir, coming back to the global geopolitics, we were talking about the reforms at the multilateral institutions. UN reform is something that has been talked about. India has been focusing on UN reforms and would like to be seen at the high table as a permanent member of the UNSC. Would your country back India as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council?
We have already communicated to India officially that Guyana has no objection in supporting India.